All right. Again, good morning, everyone. My name is Avel Espiritu, and I'm with Red 5 Lean Performance. I'll be facilitating the session today, and again, some housekeeping. I will be muting everyone during the presentation today, so when we get to the Q&A portion of it, don't forget to unmute yourself before talking. I know it's still going to happen no matter how many times I say it, but don't forget to unmute yourself. And again, as a repeat, we will be recording this session for those that could not make it today, or for those that can't make it for the full session, or they want to come back and view it again later and share it with their teams. I will be sharing the link to that here at the end of the session. So again, welcome to our Lean-YEG session. I'm part of a committee of volunteers that runs the Edmonton Lean Community of Practice, which we affectionately call Lean-YEG. We host a Lean coffee session on the third Friday of every month from September through June from about 9 a.m. to 10 o'clock. Right now we're doing it virtual, but we are going to have some in-person sessions coming up fairly soon, even as fast as this next month in December, which you'll find out more about. At these events, Lean practitioners meet to discuss or learn about our favorite topic, which is Lean in our community. And sometimes we have a structured, agenda-less, yet fun, laughter-filled conversation on Lean. But today, we're going to be having a presentation from one of our local practitioners who will be sharing their Lean journey. So today's Lean practitioner that will be presenting to us, she is a Lean Green Belt. She is a PMI Agile Certified Practitioner. She is a Lead Building Design and Construction Certified. She is also one of NATE's, I'm blue and true, top 50 graduates in the past 50 years, and Canada Green Building Council Provincial and National Green Building Champion Award recipient. And she founded and runs EcoAmmo Sustainable Consulting. I'm very happy to present to the Edmonton Lean Community of Practice your speaker for today, Stephani Carter. And I know I didn't do the intro justice. Like, you got like so many credentials. Like,
oh my goodness!
I didn't know which ones to pick and choose from. But yeah, it's my extreme pleasure to present Steph. She's going to be an awesome speaker today, and she's got tons of stuff to share with us. On to you, Steph.
Oh wow, Avel. So anybody out there in the ether that needs a nice pep talk, get Avel to introduce you. That was a lot, but thank you. That's very kind of you, and welcome everybody. I just think the world of Avel and Shafraz and this community of volunteers doing this Lean coffee stuff. So thanks for asking me to join you. And I have a topic that is, yeah, I suppose it's a Lean journey, but it's also a message about how in our construction world we can contribute to our 2050 carbon emission neutral goals, and in an accelerated way using our Lean and IPD methods. So I'm going to do my best to share with you what I got within the time frame, but there's always so much, so I might skip over some things just to keep on time, but I'm really happy for people to ask questions in the format that Avel's got structured here, so I guess it will be at the end. I will share my screen and jump right in. Can y'all see my screen? Okay, great. Thanks, Avel. Okay, so Avel already introduced us. I don't have to do very much more, but basically our mission at EcoAmmo is transitioning the world towards sustainability, and we do that with Lean and Green projects. We're a just label organization. We're a certified B Corp. That came this year. We're super pumped about that. And one of our first Lean and Green projects that kicked all of this off, I'm sure you've heard of before, is the Mosaic Center with its LEED Platinum and other awesome results. And we have over 20 IPD projects and another 9 or 10 progressive design build projects. And 16 years in business, we've done over 200 high performance projects. So we've worked on projects on all kinds of different delivery methods, trying to be sustainable. So we have some stuff to compare and contrast. I'm sure these terms are very familiar to you. This is what the world is kind of focusing on. And for a long time, as a sustainability professional, what we've tried to frame to clients is to focus on reaching carbon neutral with long-term ROI. The numbers are there, they make sense, but there's been a bit of a disconnect, so I'm going to dive into that. What we need to accelerate this is carbon neutral within upfront budgets. It's just what it is. I'm sure if anyone is aware or seen what the City of Edmonton is doing, you've seen a graph like this where they've actually calculated what we have to reduce by when. This is a global one, but Edmonton has done the same calculation. This is their numbers, and as you see, the graph is very similar. It's a steep curve. Why I bring this up is just it's something I feel passionate about as design and construction professionals. We really should be aware of all the risks that are here now and also coming so that we can protect our clients, because that's what we signed up for as professionals at the beginning of our careers. And as things are changing in the world, we need to stay on top of that and protect our clients. So I'm going to go through a few things here very quickly. Maybe you've heard some, maybe you haven't. But basically, I was thinking of asking a question here, but since we're short on time, I will just throw it out to the ether. But I'm sure all of you have a client or clients that are designing something now, and they're considering, should I do some green thing? Should I do, maybe spend a little bit more on this HVAC that will enable me to be emissions neutral, but I don't know. So this is a way for you as a professional to frame this argument to them that it's important that they set their building up for success, because if we're designing now and construction is going to be finished, summer 2023, 2025, there's a bunch of things that are coming at them that can be risky if they're not aware of them. So of course we have carbon taxes, we have utility rates that are volatile, we have other things that are positive like renewable energy costs coming down. I am going to just go forward here. If you're not aware, the federal government has their code changes coming down the pipe to be net zero ready by 2030. This is feds. And it isn't just new buildings, it's also existing buildings. And existing buildings are, of course, one of our biggest areas of emissions we have to tackle. You may have picked up that the entire investment world has changed since the pandemic, starting with BlackRock, and now it's just the, all of the stock market and investment portfolios are pushing for ESG and making some sort of commitments. So if your clients are looking for funding, they may not be as appealing to those willing to fund projects. There also the governments around the world have made some sort of emissions trading scheme and commitments to reaching net zero. There are places around the states and other areas, but this is just a nice map showing the states of states that have committed to not connect new buildings to natural gas, an interesting trend. Asset managers have now signed an agreement that says they're going to place priority on buildings that contribute to this emissions neutral goal. And so if you have a client that wants to have their building asset managed, then there could be a risk there too for them. And I mentioned earlier just the volatility of utility rates. So going emissions neutral is another way to protect our clients from that, because it will be more stable for them operationally. And of course, the weather changes that are happening. This slide is from 2020, but it's still impactful, just showing all of the weather events, more than $1 billion in the US alone. And we've experienced this here in Canada. This is just weather events in only BC. So in 1 year, it's So we've experienced our own. And another really big sea change after the pandemic was that every single oil and gas company, if you go to their website, you'll see that they now have language on their website that says climate change is real and this is what we're doing about it. So there's a lot less communication that is contrary or mixed from even these entities, which is it's a big deal. So a conventional building now has a whole bunch of factors going against it. And so it is really now more risky to just keep doing the same old thing and not pay attention to any of those other factors that are a risk to our client. We need to reach the 80% of emissions neutral by 2030 in 8 years, or 7-8 years, because that's how we get to carbon neutral by 2050. But 80% is like, if you've ever done a net zero project, it's basically like net zero, except you'll just slap some more solar panels on later. You need to be emissions neutral ready. We've come a long way. It's been a long time since the issues have been raised and different rating systems have come on board to direct us to be more aware of this and try to work on this goal. And through that time, we've always focused on the long-term ROI because the math is there. And some colleagues of ours at Stoke created a paper a few years ago that really outlines how the math is impressive. Of course, our employees of any organization are our biggest cost. And so that's when you can create a more healthy and productive environment, then you get a really big high ROI. And that's what high-performing buildings do. And these are some of the numbers. So, it's impressive, but we haven't had as much uptake. And it's been kind of frustrating as a sustainability professional saying, like, why haven't we had this much uptake, even though the math makes sense? I did a little research. I'm not a professional researcher. I just did some Googling, but I realized, and it was a bit of an aha moment for me, that most of the industry doesn't care about that message of long-term ROI. So we have buildings as a livelihood where you would own and operate your building and you care about the long-term ROI because you get the benefit. And then buildings as a product. And unfortunately, 90% of our industry is buildings as a product. And when I say it, you're probably like, yeah, I know. And I've heard that before. But for me, it was the disconnect between my sustainability community pushing out this long-term ROI message and making all sorts of research and papers and marketing, but then you're only really talking to 10% of the market that can actually do something about it. So in order to accelerate this and meet our goals, we need to talk about how to get there within upfront costs. So that's where the lean and green message comes in. I'm just going to cut to the chase here, and then I'm going to backpedal and talk more about why. But here's the GOAT math that's very high level. High performing buildings, if you collect all of the papers out there that say, how much of an increase is it? It can be equal to a regular project to approximately a 13% increase. And IPD projects, if you take all of that research and data on how they perform, their average results are below budget plus additional added value incentives or wish list items that clients didn't really anticipate they got, but they got more scope for the budget they had. So that average is around 11%. And so there's really a window of opportunity here when you just look at this math that shows IPD and lean construction, the efficiencies within that, you can have your high performance building within your budget. So I'm sure all of you, because you're in the lean community, have seen presentations on why IPD is lean and a better process by design. But in case we have people that are not aware of this, I'm just going to quickly go over it. So there these are some of the details of the statistics of, I kind of was referencing over earlier, but it's kind of more about the results. So 74% ahead of schedule for IPD, 80% greater customer satisfaction. You'll notice this is not like 100% ahead of schedule, 100% greater customer satisfaction. That's because it still comes down to people, comes down to culture, but also it's not, we're not saying IPD is a silver bullet, like 100% is going to be great. But the delta between the conventional statistics on the blue side, where 70% of projects are over budget and behind schedule, is enough of a risk, again, to share with clients so that they're aware that there is a better way. And those statistics aren't because it's something that is magical or, you know, just so innovative. It's logical, and unfortunately, it's just that the delta is just because we have a system that is set up for failure and is underperforming. That's the sad truth about it. So y'all know this too, the McClamey curve, where design bid build, I should say, constrains the team from actually setting up the project for success. Really key important partners come in too late, they don't have a say, and the only mechanisms we have to address the issues that they see are change orders, things escalate. It's very hard to keep it within budget and or back on track. CM and DB, construction manage and design build, enables us to have those early conversations more. But the difference with IPD is that it's really intentional, that we know and we're trying to maximize this McClamey curve, and we're getting more of the detailed people in earlier than just a general contractor. And then of course, protecting clients against risk again. If you have a client that needs to have cost certainty and understand how much they need to raise capital to make their building work, or they just need to assure stakeholders that they're not going to, that they know the constructability earlier to be able to give them some sort of certainty that the project will remain in budget. IPD gets there faster, and it takes less time and less cost to get to what is called validation in IPD. Cost certainty on a design bid build is quite a bit longer at tender. And I'm just going to move on. I know I'm constrained on time. So another thing I wanted to share with you is that the sustainability, the ideal sustainability design process doesn't really align with the conventional AEC process now. So architect talks to owner, gets the vision, creates a concept, engineers try to fit into that concept, then they work together to kind of work out these instructions that must be perfect, otherwise a GC will have questions and change orders, and they put it into a package, but then the package is doled out to different subs, and when you're reaching net zero, some of those specialty subs are incredibly important, like geo or solar. And so they're only seeing one part of the whole. They're not seeing everything. And in general, this does not set us up for success to actually get to net zero. It usually is kiboshed at the very beginning. I'm going to pause there because I have another slide later to give you an actual project example of that. The carbon neutral process, it's way better if the owner comes knowing what they want, so their carbon neutral goals, and then start with the engineers and operations team to actually calculate like an energy budget. And that energy budget then may inform some architectural concepts and ideas, orientation, window wall ratio, etc. And then bring in your specialty trades right away to do some scenarios with your GC estimators and sub-trade estimators in order to kind of iterate right at the beginning until you can say, yes, wow, okay, we can actually meet this. This is how every collaborative net zero project we've worked on has worked. And either you mitigate a bunch of cost up front or you save a bunch of money later from assumptions, or you actually make it feasible to actually be able to move forward to the next step, which is building the building to be net zero. So the ideal carbon neutral process is that these people come together, we set goals and targets within a budget, and then we design and construct to those budgets. So what does that sound like? The Lean and IPD method. So the best delivery for high performance projects that we have found is a more collaborative project. IPD is that the contractual model is that accelerant that keeps people together and forces you to work together when things go wrong. But in general, even if your progressive design build project is more collaborative than a design bid build, great. Something more collaborative is going to get us there. This is a project we worked on. They were trying to reach net zero energy. It was design bid build. There was a lot of players on the project that did not know the process and to reach net zero, or even what's generally required of them. So they didn't know that we needed some specialty trades in early. It was a project where the budgets were siloed. We could not access the construction budget in the design budget, and the two different players kind of owned and managed those. So that in the design budget, when we need to bring in specialty trade early, we weren't able to for several reasons. One was that if they came in early, then they would be they would be limited from bidding on the larger scope later. So it's really hard for us to get somebody in early. And there was no budget for them. The budget was already set from the beginning with all of the normal known consultants. And it was frustrating and costly. Right, I did want to add one more thing. Typically on projects like this, through the years that we've worked on projects, sustainability and anything innovative is not built into the conventional estimating process. It's a really easy column on the side that can be cut out if we reach that tender point and we have to value engineer. It's very easy to cut that kind of thing out. When it happens all the time. So when you don't get the subtrade in to give you a more accuracy, if you don't get your owner group and end users in to give you more accuracy also on temperature set points or actual hours of operation, and because it's that level of detail, not defaults, that we're using to reach net zero, then you can be overestimating and oversizing a system in the design that then would have a much bigger price tag that then is often kiboshed at that point. Meanwhile, maybe we didn't need that size of a system to get to net zero. So some wins, Mosaic Center, there was no commercial net zero building at the time in Alberta, and we had a bunch of our residential net zero experts there, and the assumption was that we're going to need these passive house level windows, and then through that iterative process I described earlier, we realized that assumption is wrong. We didn't need it, so we actually saved $1 million right off the top just from changing the windows. And Edmonton Public School Boards, as you know, is using IPD a lot. And because we had the trades in working with us to maximize the grant dollars for solar, we were able to get this quote, I guess, from the Alberta government, just saying it was the best use of the grant dollar per kilowatt production, like 10 times more production than the other grants that had applied thus far. This project was not ours, it's one of our colleagues in Oregon, and they were able, using IPD, to add 2 whole floors of scope to the Knight Cancer Institute, staying within budget. It was LEED Platinum, and it's a laboratory, and they surpassed the 2030 energy goals, which is just amazing. I mentioned earlier that existing buildings are really key to this. That's because by 2050, most of the buildings are going to already be built. So back to that chart earlier I showed you of we need to be doing something now. And so this example, this project, if anyone has done, I'm sure you have, a retrofit, a renovation, there is this planning that's done that says replace like for like. But if we replaced like for like, then we get the same thing. If we're going to replace a system that burns fossil fuels to heat and cool a building, then in 25 years, we're going to get the same thing. So we need to start now to figure out how to slowly, or at least set the building to transition. So often it's energy efficiency measures, maybe setting up one system to connect to renewables in the future, and then maybe later or soon, like it depends on what the plan is for the building, but adding some more systems like geothermal that will help to further reduce and reach those goals. Also moving the energy around instead of burning fossil fuels to heat and cool, but taking the heat, moving it around to the cool places, and taking the cool places and moving it around to places that need cooling. Much more efficient. So setting our projects to do that. So this project in itself it's become a game changer because they were able to use the IPD method to batch small scope renovation projects into one IPD project and have a bigger amount of time and scope in order to think through these processes of how to transition their system and not use like for like. This comparison is from the city of Edmonton. They're okay with us sharing this. They have 3 major renovation projects. 2 of them are not IPD, one of them is. And in general, from the the design budget to the overall months that it took to reach design, and for IPD, it was validation, so more cost certainty and constructability assurance. But the IPD job was 280% larger scope than the others, but it took 65% less time and more than 40% less cost to reach more accuracy. And EPSB, also happy for us to share this. They used IPD to put solar on a lot of their schools. And again, they took little small pieces of work and they put them together so that they could maximize all the costs and stuff associated with one small project and spread it out over many. And so you can see here they went from a cost in their first project that was design build to their second project, which was IPD, reducing it by 19% cost per kilowatt from 2,400 to 1,900, taking less time and providing more number of schools with solar. So inspiring more young children. So again, I hope that gave you some of the idea where and how the scope math works, but you still might be asking yourself, wait, is this even possible in 8 years? I mean, come on. Well, we're gonna try. And I'm a zero optimist, so I do think that there is a whole bunch of people working on this all at the same time. And when you're in that upward spiral vortex, it's amazing what can get done. So I'm gonna give you some examples of that. We are in a disruption. There are so many things happening, as I mentioned earlier in the slides, and it's technology based, it's process based. There's codes happening. There's pressure. There's carbon taxes. Renewables are getting cheaper. Weather itself isn't like, oh, climate change is happening later. It's happening now. Plus, on the technology side, the S curve of adoption is getting faster and faster. So you can see it's kind of been slower over time, way back when in the 1900s to now, it's almost like a straight line up of adoption. So that is in our favor. And back in the 1900s, when that S-curve was a lot longer, you may have seen this before, but this is a example of accelerated transition that happened in the past. It's from a great presentation by Tony Seaback called Clean Disruption. But basically, here's a photo of New York, 1900s, all horse and buggy, one car. And then only 13 years later, so remember the S-curve was a lot less steep than it is now. 13 years later, all horse and buggy, one car. So humans can do things when we're all aligned on a goal. And of course, this is, again, protecting our clients from risk. Kodak is an example of what can happen if you put your head in the sand and you don't do anything. So only 12 years later, again, a very short time frame, gone from record revenue to bankruptcy. So I'm asking my AEC peers to educate yourself on this information and help protect your clients from risk. And IPD and Lean can help us get there. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephanie. Before we get to the Q&A, I just want to say, thank you for sharing with Lean-YEG. My one key takeaway that I liked is, that, batching of small rental projects under an IPD umbrella in order to position the project to transition towards targeting those future innovations, so you can meet those long-term sustainability goals rather than just doing the like for like. That was pretty cool. I like that, and I don't like the batching, the big batch. I like the idea of that flow through. That was really cool. Anyways, before we get into Q&As, I want to say this, that our next Lean Coffee will be in person. We won't be virtual. We'll be in person. We will be inviting our community to come together and just be social in December. So this will be an early evening kind of lean drinks, Friday, December 16th. So save the date in your calendar. Join our LinkedIn page to learn about this and upcoming topics. And I'll put the links in the chat as well too. But yeah, it'll be a good idea for us to lean people get together and just commiserate on all the different things that happened over the course of last year and prep for the new year for 2023. Okay, so we'll go into the Q&A. There's different ways that we can go about this. You can either put your questions in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature, and that's what we'll do to form the FIFO, the first in, first out, for the queue for our questions for Stephanie. And it can be on anything that she talked about, or as well too, it could be a general question for the group. We got a lot of really cool lean practitioners and industry people here as well too. So you can always sit there and tap into that the community mind power, so to speak. All right, and again, a reminder, don't forget to unmute yourself before talking. And here we go. Do we have any questions for Stephanie or for the community at large? First off is Jeff. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
You got it right. It's the original and best spelling.
Awesome. What's your question, Jeff?
Stephanie, great presentation. Thank you. I'm an instructor at SAIT. So I'm trying to bring some of this lean stuff into our School of Construction here. I've been saying for a long time that one of the biggest problems we have with high quality buildings is that most of them are built by developers. And you highlighted that as well. Your stats are better than mine, but you nailed it. One of the questions I have as a building owner myself, I own a house. How can I leverage these to take my house from a 42-year-old, not terribly efficient envelope building to net zero in 8 years without spending a fortune?
Oh, that's such a great question, Jeff, and thanks for fusing lean and green stuff into your course. That makes me very happy. So the residential side is a bit different because unless you're talking to a tract builder, like a massive production builder that just does the same thing over and over again with very similar trades, but even still, the market is a bit different. I'll just compare the two. And yes, we have looked into this, and yes, we have some partners that we're trying to like make that work for the residential side. But so for commercial projects, they're like 18 to 24 to 36 months long. Same team members the whole time. So all the effort to educate them on lean and get them up to speed on how this process is different and then maintain the relationships and do the whole thing totally makes sense. On a residential project, people are there for a few days, a couple of weeks. Some builders only do a few houses a year. Some builders, have a series of different trades to get them to come and at any point. There are some builders who have built their own relationships in order to leverage that. So a couple options there. One is having, like what we've done in the past, is having an education awareness for the whole community of people that work with a builder to say, this is a better way. We need to start up front, get you up front, but getting them up front has been difficult because they're only there for 2 weeks. So why would they come for, 3 days earlier to collaborate? But it's starting. And another way to do this is, you've probably heard of Landmark, and they have their lean construction. It's all in-house. So in a warehouse. So then what you're doing is, instead of having the kind of transient trades, you have people building things in a production style setting, also better for weather events, etc. But then you have consistent people, and you can train them to think lean and to do the thing and achieve all of that. So there's a couple different options, but in general, the commercial industry is farther along in their transition to this lean and green method than the residential. So I am also a homeowner. And I also need to figure this out. And so, it's also the things that are accelerating is the grants, et cetera, to help us reach those things. But there could also just be a swell of homeowners that want to team up together and kind of try to take all the same idea with the small number of projects, and then have one more big project in order to have that consistent team to help achieve these things. But I have not seen that yet. It's just an idea that I'm spitballing with you.
I like it.
Yeah, that's been interesting. It doesn't even have to be in the same block. They can just be a bunch of homeowners that maybe in the same city, right? And they run through
work,
kind of like a collaborative project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It does help if they're all near each other, but yes.
Great. Jeff, did you have any further questions for Stephani?
No, learning about Landmark Homes, I didn't know that. The idea of, as homeowners, taking that batching idea that you talked about, that Edmonton Public School Board has had a lot of success with, and doing that on our level, that's fascinating. I'm actually busy writing that down. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Cool. If you want to nerd out more, feel free to call.
I found your website.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. or come to one of our lean coffees as well too. Like there's a lot of cool stuff. There's even one in Calgary as well too. Run through the Calgary Construction Association.
I'm on the core team for them.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Jeff. Okay, next question. We have one in the chat, and here is Shafraz posted, what are your favorite lean tools? So we'll kick it off with Stephani, and because I'm facilitating, I'll give mine as well too, but I'll let ladies first.
What are my favorite lean tools? Well, because I'm in the world of IPD, it's hard for me to choose. What are your favorite kids? Anything that makes our work visual which is everything in the lean world. But so I really love pull planning because it builds the relationships between the people who during the work to hold each other gently accountable with the natural consequences. But it makes our work visual, and it just highlights so many different issues that come up. But I also love transparent forecasting and financial management, because that is not the standard in our industry. And what that uncovers and the conversations that happen from that is just awesome, just super game changer. And then the world of IPD, it's not just about tools, though. It's mostly about people and getting people to work together. So another aspect of the IPD world that was kind of something unexpected but a pleasant side effect was that the mental health of people on IPD jobs is better than on conventional, because we are transparent, we're getting along while we're getting stuff done, we're having fun, we're giving each other high fives, so we're releasing dopamine. And you know, the contrast when you have to go from an IPD big room to a conventional project where there's conflict, conversations are zesty, it's stressful because, you know, people are pointing fingers and holding you accountable to something that maybe you didn't have a lot of control over. It's very stressful, and we've seen just the difference is really, really important. And so another tool, I guess, that we use to help maintain team health is about team values survey and retrospective. And that's a facilitated conversation to allow people to uncover maybe some assumptions they were making that led to miscommunication.
Awesome. You know, one of my favorite lean tools that I've seen as well too that would be quite relevant for lean and green would be an A3. I love A3s. For something where it's not really quite known what you're going to do, and there's a lot of fog in regards to how to get there. Like, how am I going to meet these sustainability goals? How am I going to get there in 8 years? An A3 format, when it's run through a facilitated, you know, mentor. I call it the rule of the Sith. There's only 2. I got to make a Star Wars reference somehow. But if you always have a mentor and a mentee and you run an A3 through to how to get that through on your project, you know, maybe even outside of an IPD project, and you're just doing it internally, that's a really good way to do it. And it also taps into your people as well too, because you're going to engage the stakeholders, everyone who's involved with this, to, again, have a consensus on what the problem is and what the challenge is and what are the pains that everyone's experienced, and then brainstorming and collaborating on root cause and different root cause analysis of what is causing this, and a bunch of different solutions that you can kind of get there, because there's many roads to Rome. And, you know, you can always take this one, but it's the one road that we all choose to journey on is the most important one. And using that to generate that consensus and that and use that collaboration. And A3, when it's well run, it's priceless. Okay, the next question we have is from Lisa. So Lisa says, as a new IPD is a newer process for the Strathcona County and may take some time to be able to be an acceptable form of procurement. Do you have any suggestions of what we can do now to set up more collaborative design teams? And further to that, or have engineering done first to take priority? And she's thinking more on the smaller size projects.
There was a lot of questions there. Okay, Val, can you repeat just
Sure.
one more time?
It's in the chat, but as well too, so you can read it in case you forget. But how do we set up more collaborative design teams? Does engineering, should they take a priority? And in the framework of like maybe smaller size projects. So I'm thinking maybe under 5 mil or under 3 mil.
Okay. So in general, yes. This is where I went to in my earlier presentation that we're not IPD purists. We think that the collaborative trust-based model and the culture behind it and the tools can be applied to any type of contract model, but the contract itself will either enable you or diminish your efforts to be collaborative. And so if you have a design build project or a construction managed project, you can overlap IPD culture and all that kind of stuff on it. However, you're still going to have people siloed when things go wrong. And even though there's good intentions, I'm not saying there isn't, it's just the contract is helpful. And I can say that because I've worked on progressive design build projects where the only thing keeping the team actually working together is a very strong owner. And if that very strong owner leaves, it goes sideways. Versus IPD, you have lawyers that keep you working together if you get there. So yes, you can apply this to any project. And I think the city of Calgary actually tried to, they tried and then they've adjusted again. So they put out RFPs just for the commissioning, engineering, sustainability groups. And then they were putting out a separate RFP for the rest of the consultants. There was a little bit of like unclear process. So I'm not sure how successful that was, but there's nothing stopping you from doing, I would say just procure the team as in a waterfall method, but have everybody up front as that needs to be, and then be clear that you want it not to be just a standard process where you have the architect drive, but you have engineers early on. But some of that is also habitual, so you're going to have to maybe interview engineers that are willing to take that lead and ownership role, because we've been conditioned in the industry to have architects be the one that are leading us through. Architects are still there doing programming and all this stuff, and we need all of their information at the same time. But if you can get your engineers to participate earlier, then it is definitely an opportunity, and to work with your ops team. So the two of them, at least the two of them, to figure that out. On the existing building side of things, it's a bit, a lot of owners will put out an RFP, let's say, they make their long-term plan of buildings they have to retrofit. Then they put out an RFP for a design team to come in or consulting team to come in and do an assessment, make a report. And then maybe 2 years later, an RFP is put out to actually retrofit the building based off of that report, but that is not lean. The information in the report is now 2 to 5 years old, and the level of detail that the design or consulting people were able to get into within the budget they had is not sufficient enough to inform the construction team. So this is what we experienced on Edmonton Expo, was that it's way more effective to maybe not even do that first report. And just part of the validation process on existing building is exactly that. All the trades and consultants together go to the Gemba, they go to the source, they go to the place of the issue that has to be updated, and they get the real-time information so they can price real-time. So if you have existing buildings, it's not really your question, but that has been a TSN turning point. Anyway, I'll stop talking because I don't know if I totally answered your question, Lisa. Sorry.
Cool. I do have one question. Again, if anyone else has questions, again, use the raise hand feature or post in the chat. So, Steph, would you suggest, is it chicken or egg? Which would you go first? Would it be lean and then IPD, or IPD and then lean? Does one naturally progress into the other, or is it better to just kind of go full pell-mell, just jump in feet first and do them both at the same time? What did you see like is the most organic or effective way to go about this?
I have mentioned this book everywhere, The Commercial Real Estate Revolution. So that book gives you the background on how IPD kind of started. And lean is the genesis. Lean is the thinking to get you to think more like there's got to be a better way. And so if you are a practitioner that has not yet had an IPD job, the RFPs are now the procurement is difficult because there's some that have experience and some don't. And there's a lot of new owners, and new owners are reluctant to take a team that doesn't have as much experience, even though I would say the process itself will set you up for success. So owners, as long as you have team members that can have demonstrated lean training, lean thinking, and collaborative process past experience, and when you interview them, they have the right mindset and they're willing to be transparent, to collaborate and communicate, great. You don't only have to have the team that has the most number of IPD jobs, especially if you have an IPD coach. Sorry, I know that's a plug, but the coach can walk you all through the processes. So if you are having trouble getting on an IPD job, then absolutely start your lean journey, do your lean training, demonstrate all those things, and then put it all into your RFP and your marketing materials. And then hopefully you'll have more opportunity. And I think even just learning about lean, you'll be able to speak to clients more about it. And then that leads it to, well, have you also heard about IPD? And so I know it doesn't quite answer your chicken and egg, but I think it's maybe a more practical applied answer for people who are wanting to do IPD and maybe haven't had the opportunity yet.
Awesome. That definitely answered my question. Thank you, Steph. All right. Let's see here. Doesn't look like we have any more questions, so we're going to be done a little bit early, 5 minutes early, right on time. And again, I wanted to extend a thank you, Stephanie, for sharing with the Lean-YEG community. We will be meeting again on December 16th for a social, and make sure that you join the LinkedIn page and watch our YouTube, where we'll be posting these videos for future reference. Again, thank you from the Lean Community of Practice here in Edmonton, and we'll sign off, and everyone, we'll see you in 1 month. Bye, everyone.